again. Coming up here the second time, I feel like I'm in the company of very, very smart people, and I hope I will live up to the standard. So, Viktorija, she is famous. She is the best chess player, and not just the best female chess player in this country, and we are so proud of you. But I will start with you then, and then we will come to the partner, who is also very, very interesting personality. So how did you start playing chess, and how did you stick to it for so many years?
Well, first of all, hello to everyone. It's actually really a pleasure to be here today. So I started when I was very young, at a very traditional age of 6. That's normally when chess players start playing chess. And for the next 25 years I continued, because I actually really loved it. It was very interesting, it was fascinating, and I really didn't have any kind of urge to give it up or to stop at any moment.
But you must have felt a bit lonely among boys, I guess. No?
Well, it's a good point. Yes, actually, chess is a very, well, let's say, when you start playing chess at a very young age, you immediately see that it's a boy's world. It's a man's world. There are normally very few girls playing chess. And as years go by, there are less girls because they simply drop out. So it didn't discourage me. I thought it was very interesting and a nice challenge, and I still think so today. And whenever I talk to young girls who just start to play chess, I tell them that, you know, you should really hang in there, because that's a challenge.
And in year 2000, you decided, or somebody advised you, to compete with the men and to become the male champion. She is the men's champion in Lithuania.
Yeah, actually twice. The thing is that in chess, just basically like in any other, sport or maybe even activity, in order to be better, in order to progress, you need to compete with the best. So when I was playing chess at the young age, when I was a teenager, I was both competing with girls in girls-only tournaments, but also competing with boys, competing with men whenever I could. And I have to say that I was extremely proud to become Lithuania's men's champion at the age of 16. And now, whenever I look back at my career, I think this was probably my proudest moment.
I bet that. And obviously, chess is the mind game, so you don't need to be very physically fit, or maybe you have to be just endure the game and the stress. But are there any stereotypes that discourage people or make it more difficult? I don't only mean women, men, but age or, race or any other tradition in the country.
Well, I think in a way chess is a perfect activity, because if you look at it theoretically, there is no glass ceiling. You compete at the board. It doesn't matter, your age doesn't matter, your gender doesn't matter, at least in theory, and you can really prove that you are good enough. However, in what we see in practice, year after year, is that girls, there are different expectations towards girls. What I mean by that, and I'm sure that Peter will comment more from the point of view of the coach, is that girls are applauded for doing half as badly as boys. We simply expect girls to be weaker, and in some strange way it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Girls also are encouraged to play in girls-only tournaments, which means that there are a lot of low-hanging fruits. There are medals you can win, you have much less competition. But what happens in the meantime is that boys who train much harder and who compete among each other, they become stronger. And then in some years, maybe when you're 15 or 16 or 20, you suddenly see that, you are in this little women's club and you are simply not good enough anymore to compete with boys, with men.
So in chess, you have sort of ended your very, very active career around the age of 30. And we will just go to your next career. But why people end the chess career because as I would think, you get smarter with age, you get experience.
Well, yes and no. Of course, you get more experienced with age, but I think research shows that you peak around the age of 30. So basically, the sharpness of mind and generally physical condition also matters a lot in chess, obviously. So the best age to play chess is the young age. Of course, you can hang in there for many, many years, but there are not so many prospects for, for becoming better with age. So normally people gravitate towards other activities, so maybe become coaches and, well, teach the new generation.
Just before we move to your next career, we'll switch to Peter. And I don't know how many of you know in the audience that Peter is quite incredibly achieved chess player and also the coach of the previous #1 and the current #1 chess player in the world. And he lives in Lithuania, in Šiauliai, so we basically have you here. We can be proud of you. And just before we go to your chess career, somehow you are a little bit in the shadow of your wife here in this small country, and you've achieved so much yourself. How do you feel?
Well, I don't know if I see it like that, but now that you mention it, I understand the point of view. But actually, it doesn't feel like being in the shadow. I mean, well, there's actually quite a lot of respect for chess here in Lithuania, and of course, especially for Viktorija. So I don't see it as being in the shadow. On the contrary, I mean, this is actually my first conference ever, and well, I'm very proud to be, and that it's a sort of female conference.
So women will bring you into spotlight.
Yeah, exactly. That it's a female conference. I am very proud, I have to say. So thanks a lot for having me here.
Okay, and you moved from being the achieved, accomplished chess player yourself to being a coach. How did you make that switch? Is it a passion that you have, or it's a professional career, or it's a business, or why are you doing this, and what do you think makes you a great coach?
To be honest, I think it was a bit of a coincidence. I was a player myself and was maybe around top 50 in the world. But I happened to meet, at that point, world champion or close to world champion, and we got a bit in touch, and at some point he asked me if I wanted to help him training a bit, and I thought that would be good for my personal career, but, well, then the cooperation went well, and I slided into being his trainer. So it was more like a gradual thing, but I would say a pleasant surprise, and I think maybe I lack a bit on the competitive side, and I prefer more the analytical side, and somehow, well, I ended up with kind of a dream job that I didn't really imagine was possible, but well, it seemed to be.
So what did you have to learn to become a coach from being a player yourself? What does it make a good coach? Because you must definitely be a good coach, being the coach of the #1 players, 2 of them in a row.
For sure. I think working with the absolute best players in the world, I don't think there is a specific recipe, because I think their specific needs overrules everything else. I mean, I think I was a great coach for Vishy Anand when I worked with him, and now I work with Magnus Carlsen. And, well, their moods and needs very much define it. So you have to be extremely flexible. It's not like, let's say, you're the coach of a football team or basketball team, where it's you who takes the decision. You decide, you guys are playing, you do like this and like this. No, the one who has, take the real decisions is the player. And you really have to adapt to that. So, I mean, we call it a second in chess, which is someone who, well, my job is to help them actually do their absolute best, and I suggest strategies, but they make decisions and such. So it's very much cooperation like that. So it's a slightly different role than a typical sports trainer, but I think a very interesting one.
Have you coached women? Can you compare women and male players? And
I wouldn't say I have coached women, but of course, I have helped Viktorija at times, and she has helped me. But sort of, let's not talk about Viktorija, but I will say more in general. I think there is a big difference. I described the 2 I work for. They are obviously considerably stronger chess players than me, and they take the decisions. In typical women coaching, it's quite the difference. I mean, then the coach will be a quite stronger male chess player to a female player who is very strong for being a female, but not sort of in a relative sense. And this very often creates this dynamic that the male trainer will take decisions, and the female players will basically just parry orders. And while that could be optimizing in winning medals in the next championship, being for the team or such, and maybe create bonuses for the trainer, I think it's extremely damaging in the long run. If you look at the best chess players in general who are males, they are very strong individuals. They take their own decisions. They have very sort of distinguished idea on how to do things. While with the female players, with maybe the exceptions of a few great ones, Viktorija to an extent, they will actually be quite individual. But there is, I think, a strong pattern of a considerably stronger male coach who will take decisions, and I think that's a very, very bad pattern, but a logical pattern, because it does create some championships, but I think it's a very short-term perspective, and it's very damaging. Well,
and do you two play? Who wins?
You can answer that.
No, but I was actually, I wanted to add to what Peter was saying. I had some great, coaches, seconds myself, even before we met, and they always told me to question authority, that this was the main thing, that when someone tells you, obviously about chess, but I think it's a general principle. Don't just agree, but think, question, perhaps you will come up with another suggestion, or perhaps you will find even a better solution in a certain position. So I think this kind of, questioning authority and taking responsibility, taking initiative, is something that perhaps is sometimes lacking in women's chess, and that also hurts the overall chances.
I think it's really true for many other areas, not only chess, what you have been just saying. We are really, the time's running really fast, so I will have to jump to your second career. So Peter jumped to coaching and you jumped to politics. Why politics?
Well, actually, for me, it was quite a natural choice, because before I made this choice, many women chess players and chess grandmasters did the same in other countries. For instance, I especially looked up to, my Latvian colleague and longtime friend, the one that I competed with when we were little girls, Dana Reisnese, who is a finance minister in Latvia right now. Another example was famous grandmaster from Serbia, Lisa Maric. She was also a minister of youth and sports in her respective country. So somehow, generally speaking, it's not an unusual path to take for a chess player or an ex-chess player. But of course, another, perhaps even a more important reason is that as a chess player, I traveled the whole world and, especially Europe. And of course, when you travel a lot, you have time to compare, to see what is good about other countries, and perhaps to envision that some of those things could also be applied in your own country. So that creates a certain wish to actually make change also at home.
So now that you are in the parliament, what priorities do you have, and what do you want to achieve? What do you want to be known for in politics?
Well, right now I'm, for a start, I'm in opposition, so that creates a certain sort of, the rules of the political game obviously are that while you're in opposition, there is a limit to what you can achieve. But in general, I'm extremely happy with being in Human Rights Committee and dealing with all the questions that have to do with human rights, with gender equality, with violence against women specifically. I think these are all the themes that are actually important. They are crucial. There is not enough attention to them, and I think there is scope for growth and for change here in Lithuania.
How do you make yourself seen in the parliament? I think commonly it's quite a diverse community with various types of personalities and reputation-wise very challenging people. How do you make yourself seen, differentiate? How to lead changes there? What do you think?
Well, I think if you want to be seen, probably the best way is to get identified with one particular theme and to really, take it and lead in it. That is probably the best way. Another thing is that if you want not just to be visible, but also to achieve things in politics, and this is my impression, you also have to be able to build bridges. You have to be able to talk with people who perhaps have another ideology or don't see things in exactly the same way as you do. But you cannot achieve things alone, and you have to be able to work with others in order to achieve result.
Jumping back a little bit to your life as a couple, you have quite a challenging lifestyle. We all learned that you live in Šiauliai. Viktorija works in Vilnius. Peter travels, I understand, a third of the days in a year, and you have 3 kids. How do you manage, and what's the magic?
Well, there is no magic, obviously. There is no magic wand. But yeah, it's true. I spent 4 days a week in Vilnius, 3 days back at home in Šiauliai, where our 3 sons live. And well, I'm really lucky that Peter, when he's at home, he's really at home, so he can actually help a lot and take care of kids as well. So
yeah, I think it's a puzzle, obviously, and we have a lot of support. But well, as you say, at least 2/3 I'm at home, and also Viktorija is home on weekends. So we generally manage, but of course it's a challenge. But okay, I think one of the previous speakers spoke of 5 kids, so I really don't think we have any right to sort of complain.
I feel the same after her. So it is really incredible. And when you're in the family, you are role models to the kids. I mean, do you encourage them to play chess? How is it for them to be in the, I would say, shadow or maybe spotlight of the famous parents, the achieved parents in chess?
Well, I don't think we especially encourage them to play chess. Maybe also, I mean, if they have to compare themselves with Viktorija's results, it's well, it might be a bit difficult. But I think, well, they know how to play chess. But I think generally kids should try a lot of sports, and they should be allowed to choose themselves. And I think, well, none of the older kids has actually, well, they've been introduced to chess, but they've chosen not to play. And I think we kind of accept that as a fact, right?
yeah, that's life.
That's life. And a little bit about living in Lithuania from Peter's perspective. I mean, Viktorija, is trying to do things to change here, and you're an outsider. You moved in here. What do you see are the good sides and the bad sides of our society? What would you, coach her to change?
Well, I think one thing that really sort of springs to mind from a Dane moving to Lithuania here is, let's say, the lack of trust in the state, or you can even say in the politicians. Of course, politicians might not be that popular in Denmark either, but in general, we have very high belief in the state. We believe we can sort of build a positive future together, and I mean, I guess it's rooted with a long democratic tradition, while of course for Lithuania being sort of forced into being one of the republics of the Soviet Union really has created a lot of distrust in the state, I would say. And that is really a huge difference. I mean, in Denmark, for an election, about 90% of the people will vote because they actually think this really matters. While here, I think we are around 50%, which is really a huge difference. So, and the same when I traveled, I mean, as a chess player, you really traveled to the, well, then Soviet Union and later ex-Soviet Union, and you could see there was a disbelief in the state, a disinterest in politics. I mean, people might complain, but they don't believe in possibility for change. And that is actually a pity, but of recent I can see that, for instance, Lithuania is doing, well, the European Union is actually quite surprisingly very popular here, while let's say in Western Europe, we are starting to lose trust in it. So there's also some very encouraging sign, but that is actually, I mean, that's something I really noticed as a Dane moving here.
Do you get any inspiration in your, political career now from Peter's perspective?
Well, I get.
Does it help to see things differently?
I think, of course, it helps to have different perspectives. And just like back in my chess playing days, we used to discuss things a lot. So we do these days as well. And well, it's very useful to get advice and another kind of perspective.
And as this conference is about leadership and inspiration, what do you think is the leadership style for both of you, and what do you think we need more in that to reshape our society? What is your opinion on that?
Well, I think when it comes to women's leadership, perhaps in particular, I would say that I see it as a pity that, let's say, ambition in women, or let's say a wish to be a leader or being a leader, is still seen differently than the same qualities in male leaders. I think we are all here, well, both women and men, we want to be accepted socially by our peers, by our colleagues. And there is a certain expectation that women will not want to be leaders, because if they are, they are seen as pushy, they are seen as aggressive, there is quite a number of negative connotations which come with female leadership. And I see it as a pity. I think that, well, the more support there is from feministic men, which I think my husband luckily is, the more there is support from other women. I think the better it would be, because generally no society can succeed when when women are not empowered. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think we are on a very good track, but it's just, well, there is some more way to go in that direction.
What is your leadership style, and what do you notice here on that topic?
Well, I think it can be debated if I'm a leader. I'm a trainer, but as I said, it's actually the player who is the boss. But it's true that I've been involved in a lot of World Championship matches, and at least with Magnus Carlsen, who I work for now, the situation is that I was with him to New York, and then we had a trainer team who was sitting back in Norway doing, let us say, chess analysis with a lot of computers. And I was sort of the bridgehead between them. So, well, my job is towards my boss to make sure he feels comfortable, he gets what he needs, and he doesn't get stressed. And then I have to, at the same time, be an inspiring leader for those who are trying to create a lot of chess ideas. And maybe I have to speak a bit of different language to, tell them that it's very important what they do, and to tell Magnus that, don't worry, things will be fine, to get the stress level down there. So I really have to adjust to to be motivating or comforting to whoever I work for there. But yeah, I think, that's...
You feel you have done something specific for them to become so successful for your players that you coach?
Sorry?
Have you done something specific? Do you have any tips? How do you, a lot of people in the room, they are mentoring or managing other people.
I understand, but I'm really not qualified to speak about that. I have been extremely blessed with working with two players who were number one in the world when they asked me to help them. I think, if you can see from my perspective, the trick is to work with the absolute best, and that's of course a bit unfair. But I cannot say that somebody comes to work with me and then they become a world star. They actually started working with them, they were number one in the world. So that would be.
In chess, is it more about practice, or like you have to be born with the brain?
I think it's a bit of both, but I think, we discussed it, that, Magnus Carlsen I'm working for is known to be one of the best talents ever, and some portray him as rather lazy. And there could be a bit of truth in that, but, he's completely obsessed with chess, has been with his whole life, and this rule of 10,000 hours, I'm clear that everybody who's been quite successful has done that. And I think even if we speak a bit about gender differences, at least I think you made the point that the male players tend to be much more obsessed with it, while for the female players it might be a tool. Maybe you can weigh in a bit on that. But,
I think that, women maybe quite often in chess, at least, they see chess as a tool to get somewhere, let's say, to win medals, to achieve something, to realize their ambitions. At least this was the case to an extent for me and to quite some of my colleagues that I know. But let's say with male chess players, it's quite often an obsession that, really, that they can do it 24 hours and it doesn't stop. So that's actually a huge difference. And, this obsession, it brings results, because that's when you don't count hours, that's when you don't count weekdays, and I think, of course, it's also a luxury. Normally women, they cannot afford to do such. They have to also take care of something else.
But you somehow managed. You have kids that you had when you were still in a very active career, I guess.
Yes, but I was never that obsessed, actually.
Just brain.
Okay. I just liked
Lucky
it.
you. I get it. Any questions from the audience? Because we have here in the front.
Viktorija, I was playing chess in my childhood, and I remember you were growing as a small star very quickly. And so I also was playing in the tournaments. So I wanted to ask you what it meant for you to lose the game.
I'm sure Peter can also comment on that. It's always very painful. With chess players, we say that, a loss in an important game is like a small death. It really is very painful because, and I think that I've always made this point, that it's extremely painful for women, because it's actually something to do with your intelligence. It's not about the way you look. It's not about the way you feel that day. It questions whether you're bright enough to do it, and that's actually that really does something to your confidence, and it takes time to recover after it. So I think, Well, in any chess playing career, you really have those ups and downs are not so easy.
I think also earlier you asked if we play amongst ourselves,
Yes.
and we really tried avoided answering that question. I think that is why. I mean, we play at times, but it becomes very competitive, and if one of us lose, which happens quite often, well, it's not that pleasant actually.
Well,
So
there is also a draw.
there is a draw, which we tend to do,
Yes.
but I mean, there is no such thing as a friendly game, even between people who are married. So it becomes very
I get
competitive,
that.
and it's not fun losing. Well, you're always very happy when you beat me.
Yes,
I don't
that's
like
true.
it.
I know everybody's happy to win, but yeah, winning in marriage is not necessarily the good recipe for a successful marriage. Time is up, and I am extremely grateful for you both being here and opening up this very, very interesting world of chess. And I hope that you have the endurance that you had in chess for the politics in Lithuania and achieve the things that you are passionate about.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ačiū labai.